This is a hot topic for the past few years since COVID. LMIAs. What are they about? What should you know about them? And the key points and hacks to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Consider this as a crash course in LMIA for beginners and expect the raw truth and nothing but the truth, just like the rest of our videos. Who am I? I'm Reza from England, Canada, licensed immigration practitioner, and our office specializes in helping business owners, people, and families move across borders. I'm not an actual full-time YouTuber, but I work hands-on with our immigration team, working on actual applications and communicating with the immigration department, and of course Service Canada for LMIAs inside Canada, and of course communicating with embassies overseas, representing our clients on a daily basis. Why are we posting this video? These are made for the purpose of sharing our hands-on immigration knowledge, including but not exclusive to existing clients, potential new applicants, and immigration consultants and agencies. If you're thinking about immigrating, we're here to help. Get a free email assessment, whether you're an employer or a foreign worker, with us by filling out the form down below this video. And of course, if you're an active immigration practitioner, we'd be happy to assist you with outsourcing your back office operations. Here are the frequently asked questions for the LMIA program in Canada. What is an LMIA, and does everyone require to work inside Canada? An LMIA is the abbreviation for Labor Market Impact Assessment, and you may already know that, and it's just a fancy word for requesting permission from the Canadian government, specifically Service Canada, to hire a foreign worker because the employer in Canada could not hire qualified Canadians for the position they have advertised. An LMIA can have multiple names or vacancies for the same position. Not everyone needs an LMIA for work permit inside Canada. There are many LMIA exempt programs in Canada for international students, spouses or partners with students or foreign workers already with a work permit, LMIA exempt programs such as the International Mobility Program, and specific nationalities who are in specific occupations based on bilateral agreements which Canada has in place, in addition to temporary policies for specific nationalities such as Ukrainians, Syrians, Turkish nationals, Hong Kong, and Iranians. How many types of LMIs do we have? Well, there's a high wage and a low wage LMIA, and each province has their own wage requirements to determine if it's high wage or low wage. There are also PR supported LMIAs, which can be either with a work permit or without a work permit. In total, we can have a total of 4 different types of LMIAs. Number 3, does an employer have to do anything besides the recruitment and advertisement and LMIA payment in order to apply for an LMIA? In BC and Saskatchewan and Manitoba, employers are required to register with the local government to be able to be eligible to apply for an LMIA. It can take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks in Manitoba or up to 3 months in BC. You cannot apply for an LMIA in these 3 provinces until you have completed the process for this registration. Other provinces such as Ontario, Alberta, Atlantic provinces are exempt from this pre-LMIA step called employer registration. Besides this point, for high wage LMIAs only, the employer also needs to consider that they need to submit a transition plan regarding 3 main activities of how they will plan to become less dependent on foreign workers by the time the existing LMIA contract expires, or how they will transition the foreign worker to become a Canadian permanent resident through federal immigration programs. This step is within the LMIA application itself by outlining and describing the transition plan within the fields provided by Service Canada. What are the processing times for LMIAs across Canada? Well, PR supported LMIAs are the same across Canada no matter which province you apply for, and can take anywhere from 55 to 75 business days. They are a little bit slow these days. Low wage LMIAs are typically faster, especially in low skilled occupations compared to high wage LMIA applications. For low wage and high wage LMIA applications, each province has their own processing time. You can check the latest processing times on the Service Canada website, although they don't report each province separately but each specific LMIA category separately. What are the chances of a work permit rejection after the LMIAs? Well, the answer is Service Canada approves the LMIA and IRCC makes the decision on the work permit. These are 2 completely independent entities. Therefore, if the foreign worker doesn't meet the requirements of the job that's being offered to them with supporting documentation, a work permit can be refused. However, the Canadian employer can relink the LMIA to another foreign worker until either the LMIA expires or one of the foreign workers receive the work permit based on that positive LMIA. How does the new Trusted Employer Program work for the LMIAs, known as the Recognized Employer Portal? Well, it's a 3-year pilot program not yet launched. It allows the approved employers to have access to 36-month validities for all their LMIAs, a simplified process to go through the LMI process for high-frequency positions they plan to hire, similar to the Atlantic Immigration Program, but structured within the LMIA program. The program is being rolled out by default for agricultural employers in September this year, which is now, and other employers can apply to enter the program by January of 2024. To become eligible for non-agricultural stream employers under this new pilot, you need to have had at least 3 positive LMI decisions for the same occupation during the past 5 years and no prior compliance violations. Is there a list of employers in Canada who have applied and been approved for an LMIA? Well, the answer is yes. There's a positive LMIA list and a negative LMIA list that is issued every quarter by Service Canada and has been included in the links that we're posting for this article and video on our website. Hint: don't approach these employers applying for jobs, as your success rate will be less than 0.1%. They usually have recruitment agencies working for them or already have a worker designated to be hired, and they're just going through the motions of advertising. So save your breath. How much does an LMIA cost and who pays for it? For every position and vacancy on the same LMIA application or multiple LMIAs, if it's different positions, the employer has to pay a non-refundable processing fee of $1,000 to Service Canada. Only the employer can pay for this, and the exemptions for this fee are for caregiver applications only. Keep in mind that even if you have the same position in one LMIA, let's say you bring in 20 nurses, that'll be 20 times $1,000. What's the difference between a no-name LMIA and a named LMIA? Well, a no-named LMIA means the employer has not found an eligible foreign worker or decided on one yet, and is processing the LMIA without a name until it has been approved, after which they can link a specific name of a foreign worker who wishes to apply for the work permit using this positive LMIA. An LMIA with a name stated on it goes through the LMIA application process with the name, the nationality, and the date of birth, and the employer cannot change the name unless the foreign worker is not approved for a work permit, in which case they can designate another foreign worker. Can an employer hire an unlimited number of foreign workers with an LMIA, or is there a limit? Well, the answer is that high-wage LMI applications do not have a cap or limit. The only criteria that Service Canada looks at is that the recruitment efforts have been completed by the employer and whether they can financially support these positions and wages. For low-wage LMI applications, there's a low-wage cap, which limits the number of foreign workers the employer can hire based on their industry and the number of Canadians and foreigners that they already have on payroll. It's a bit of a tricky calculation, but the online LMI application form has all the fields, and you just plug in the numbers and it crunches it for you. We conduct this assessment for our employer clients before we sign them up to help them with LMI applications to see how many foreign workers they're eligible to apply for under the low wage stream. The low wage cap is exempt from the following positions: on-farm agricultural positions, caregivers working for healthcare companies, PR supported LMIAs even if they're in low wage, short-term or highly mobile workers, and seasonal agricultural workers, which are max 270 days. How long does a company need to be registered, or how many employees on payroll before they're eligible to apply for an LMIA? There's no minimum time required for an employer to be registered and operational, or number of staff on payroll to be eligible for an LMIA. Service Canada checks the genuinity requirements of the employer and their financial capacity. Remember that we're always posting about these key details about Canadian business programs and other similar programs for professionals, business owners, and entrepreneurs. And if that's what you're looking for or interested in, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel for more deep dive videos like this. Will Service Canada interview the employer who has applied for an LMIA each time before a decision is made on the application? If you've repeatedly applied and had previously approved LMIs, the chances of an interview are low. If it's your first time applying for an LMI, it's very likely, above 75% chance, that Service Canada will schedule a quick interview call with you to go over the LMI application details and make sure everything is in order. Are the employment regulations different when hiring a foreign worker through an LMIA process versus a Canadian employee? It's the same provincial and federal employment regulations that apply. The only differences are as follows due to the LMIA process. For low-wage LMI applications, the employer needs to cover the round fare ticket fees to the home country for their low-wage foreign workers. For low-wage LMI applications, the employer needs to make sure that the foreign worker won't pay more than 30% of their total monthly gross income on accommodations within the region where the business is operating and the foreign worker is supposed to work from. For all low-wage and high-wage LMIs, if provincial healthcare coverage doesn't kick in immediately upon the arrival of the foreign worker, the employer needs to cover the gap with private insurance. But thankfully, after COVID, this has been relaxed in terms of provincial healthcare kicking in immediately as soon as they have a work permit. All employers who go through the LMI process and are approved need to keep all documentation for a minimum of 6 years for compliance and audit purposes by Service Canada according to the temporary foreign worker program that they're administrating. All employers and temporary foreign workers should keep in mind that the closed work permit issued based on the approved LMI means that the worker cannot switch employers unless the employer violates the employment agreement or the foreign worker is terminated by the employer, in which case they can lose their status. Does the employer need to apply for an LMI to bring in a foreign worker if they need them for a short period, specific project maybe that's limited in duration, or even seasonal work? The answer is that for short-term or seasonal work within 120 days roughly, LMIs are exempt. So you can keep that in mind if you're an employer that falls into that category. And here's a favorite question of mine. Are there other ways of hiring foreign workers in Canada without an LMI? Well, the answer is yes, of course. There are specific countries which Canada has bilateral agreements with and that allow specific occupations to enter and work for an employer based on an LMI exempt code based on the employer giving them an offer of employment. You can also use provincial or regional programs such as the Provincial Nominee Program or the regional programs such as the Atlantic Immigration Program or the Rural Northern Immigration Pilot. Global Talent Stream is also possible, which is still an LMIA but considered an LMBP, which means a labor market benefit plan for specific occupations only in IT, media, and engineering. Are there compliance and regulations that apply to the employer after hiring a foreign worker through the LMIA program? Of course there are. This is Canada, folks. You need to meet the terms and conditions on the employment contract. As an employer, keep all LMI documentation for 6 years, as there could be a random audit anytime within 6 years. Even if the foreign worker never showed up to work, you still need to have all documentations regarding the LMI. You may interview the foreign worker if they're on site and review payroll and other documents to make sure all conditions of wages, hours of work, overtime, and work conditions are met. The foreign worker can be earning more or having better conditions than what was originally offered to them, but not less. And employers have a duty to report to Service Canada if the foreign worker does not show up to work, either from the beginning or even halfway through. Is it legal to hire family members or relatives as an employer using the LMI process? Yes, it is possible, but the family members need to qualify for the position with supporting documentation when they apply for the work permit. There are specific precautions you need to take when applying for an immediate family member, especially when they have your same last name, specifically with IRCC, not so much with Service Canada. But at the end of the day, it is 100% legal and possible. Here's a bonus question. How long does it take to process the work permit for the foreign worker to enter Canada after you've received the positive LMI decision from Service Canada? The work permit processing times can range from 2 weeks in Europe and other visa-exempt countries to 2 months in other regions. And in certain cases, such as high volume and high refusal regions, it can take 4 to 6 months. Remember, spouses of foreign workers can be eligible for an open work permit as long as the LMI is not under the low wage and meeting certain other conditions, including certain other exceptions. But that's a whole other video we'll post next month about spousal open work permits and dependents. And since you watched this video to the end, I'll leave you with a nice little fun fact. If the foreign worker you plan to hire can obtain a French language exam score of CLB 5 only in speaking and listening, no LMI is required, and you can bring them under the Francophone Mobility Program. The key is that the employer has to be outside of Quebec, the foreign worker needs to meet those language requirements, and it's a very simple program, and it is significantly underutilized by employers across Canada. If you're thinking about immigrating permanently or temporarily, whether it's through an LMIA, an LMI exam program, you're at the right place. I can guarantee only one point. You'll know what to expect, the entire process clearly laid out for you, and all the risks identified, including costs. Our team speaks over 9 languages, and we help applicants from over 50 different countries during the immigration process. Wow. That's quite helpful when you're an employer trying to recruit from around the world. Click the link below this video and get a free email assessment for eligible applicants. If you're ready to apply and would like a one-on-one session with me or any of my licensed team members at Ingwe, you can also book a session using the consultation link in the description of this video. And of course, if you want to take our immigration knowledge for a test drive, no problemo. You can come in, tune on our YouTube channel every Thursday at 11 a.m. North America Eastern Standard Time, where we have a live stream and we answer all of your immigration questions for free on the spot. See you next Thursday.